The hell's that?
Oh, you are
This
about
year?
to find out.
Welcome to Hashtags at Life.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Today, we are blessed to have Dylan Sides with us. Dylan, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody, wherever you are.
Dylan is hopefully safe. Hopefully, if you're driving, you laugh responsibly if it applies. Dylan is one of our colleagues who is, you want to open that? Crack that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Who we work with quite a bit, and we have been like, hey, man, come on in and talk a little bit. So to start out with, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do in the film industry?
Oh, right. Well, I started my career in special effects and prop design, and I do a wee bit of makeup here and again. Owned a soundstage in Michigan for quite a long time, and then our glorious governor at the time cut our film incentives, and then I switched to being a full-time DP, and then from there kind of leaning into doing producing, and so now I do kind of a hybrid of both, and now owning a movie prop shop.
And when did you guys open that shop?
We officially opened our doors for pre-opening. Technically, it's still not technically open, but it is open to the public right now. But we have been operating for about 3 months now.
3 months. 3 months. And the store has a few different offerings. Tell our listeners a little bit about what they can find at the store.
Well, first and foremost, it's actually a real operating spy shop. So that's why we still call it Spy Ops.
Spy Ops.
Yeah, it has every camera you can possibly imagine that you want to hide in just about anything you can imagine. You can find things that track people, all kinds of fun, dangerous things.
So you could go full James Bond if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, to unhealthy degrees. We have little wrist devices that scramble signals and all kinds of fun, nefarious toys. But second is me and my partner Bear basically wanted to create a shop that any filmmaker, big or small, can come in and basically rent anything they would previously think is like impossible to achieve or to get. So we wanted to kind of focus on police, military, EMS, firefighters, all those things, all these forms of government that are very hard to kind of get a hold of. So all of that we pretty much offer, anything from ambulances to police cars to uniforms, weapons.
Set-ready weapons. So
set-ready.
Yeah, not real weapons.
That's the one thing we've kind of banned from the store. It's something me and Bear wanted to kind of figure out is how to create weapons that could be used on set that have no ability to harm, but yet replicate every feature of a firearm.
Everything that you want out of the look.
Yeah, so we've been tinkering and everything. So we have these specialized special effects, we call them shot boxes. So it is a device that replicates the sound of gunfire almost to a perfect degree that you could fire multiple times without ever having to reload it.
And the gun has actuation, so you can see the mechanics of the gun moving.
Yep, and so the shot box makes the sound off screen. Actor is the one, hitting the firing button so he can time it with his explosion.
So they know when to react. I mean, that's another thing, especially when you're moving really fast on independent sets, is trying to coordinate. You've got only so many shots to get off, especially if you're firing blanks. And if the actor doesn't react at the time that they're supposed to react, at the time that the practical sound is fired, it can be a real problem.
Which is the only real problem. We've been still using blanks to begin with, because other than the smoke coming from the gun, all the barrels are blocked. They're supposed to be by law. So you're not getting any real muzzle flashes from the...
No, especially if they're top fire, because there's two types of blank weapons out there. There's the front fire and then the top fire. And what that means, if you're not familiar, is... So a blank is... It looks like an actual piece of ammunition. It's smaller. It's not the same. They shouldn't be the same size, because I know they come in a couple of different sizes. But they should never be the size of a live barrel. And what it does is when the hammer triggers, there's a CO2 inside of it, and it propulses out of the gun, out of the prop weapon, and it can give a spark or a flare. But if that's really only practical if it comes out the front of the barrel, because like when I did Power and Money, a good 60% of those were top fire, which means that the air escaped and the sparks came from the top of the weapon, so you still had to flare in post.
Yeah.
So that's why we're developing a weapon that has grinders in it. So essentially there's a motor that when you fire it, it sends grinders and it creates the top spark. And then there's a little indicator that basically takes and activates a little miniature smoke machine inside the weapon as well. So we designed this off of essentially taking apart vape weapons.
Oh, the vape mods.
And you know, it just activates the heat, so you get all of that plus the smoke. And it's like, then the only thing you have to do in post is what you would normally have to do in post. So that's been our big thing. And so that's like a specialized weapon set that you can get. But then we wanted to make
Is that something you guys have readily available or still in development?
Oh, yeah. The prototypes are available. The shot box is available. That's been available. We've rented that thing out so many times now.
Nice.
That the company is already developing beyond prototype phase. So that's great. And we're hoping that the patent will get approved soon and we can get that as something that we can also sell in store and not just rent.
So if someone were to desire rentals, how would they go about? Can you visit the shop and walk around?
Well, basically it operates as a 9 to 5. So, well, technically 10 to 6. So from Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You walk in. If you want a very specific weapon, we do have weapons on display for all the various types that we offer. But say you want something a little bit more wacky, like a Tommy gun. They say, hey, can I see the weapons room? So we'll bring you in back, figure out what you want. I want to say about 70% of the weapons are basically hard plastic that have been meticulously repainted and repurposed and reweighted. So they don't just look like toys in people's hands. They have real weight to them, and they look just as real as anything else. And those weapons, we want to keep them like that because the object of this is that anybody would be able to afford this. So instead of saying, hey, you come in, it's going to be $300 to rent a gun that realistically would cost you $500 to own.
Sure.
You know, it's just not a fair practice. So you come in there and you're only paying $15 for that weapon. And then if you rent it for more than a week, which would get the numbers up there, then we go down to a 4-day long rental instead.
Okay.
So the longer you rent it, the better the deal, essentially. And if you rent multiples of weapons, then we do a bundle deal. We had a production come in that needed 7 SWAT police officers.
Fully geared,
M4s, utility. Everything. And so
walkies and all that.
So basically we do a bundle deal with all of those. So something that would normally at another rental house probably cost well over $2-3 grand for a rental. I think the most they spent was $700
well, that's
for
pretty nice.
2 days.
Yeah.
And
that's how many geared out? 4?
That's 7.
7. So yeah, that's $100 a piece.
A head, yeah. I mean, from head to toe.
That's a deal.
Yeah, that's helmets, helmets, goggles, M4s,
and that
chest
was for
plates,
a week.
Knee pads, everything. Yeah,
that was for a week.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Nope.
Listen up, indie filmmakers. You got to go to Spy Ops for all your,
your special
needs there.
I also noticed recently that you put an advertisement out for having some applications.
The makeup department.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
So it's something we're still kind of growing and figuring out. It is something we're offering, and it does have a small part in the shop, but realistically we're trying to find someone to help kind of manage that department because it does require some bit of knowledge, and I'm not always there. So if it's something that somebody wants, I would suggest asking the guys at the store to give me a contact, but right now there's well over, I want to say, 1,000 prosthetics back there, from everything from zombies to noses, cheeks, heads.
So you've got a good supply to start, because I know there's maybe in our area 2 places that you could probably go on any given day to possibly walk away with something.
If they're open.
Their hours are going to be similar to Spy Ops.
Other than silicone transfers, which we do also offer, I don't know if there's actually anyone left in Michigan that's supplying actual pre-made prosthetics.
So you're one above what is available out there.
Yeah.
That's nice. So let's say I came in, and first off, as we've mentioned many times before, prep is important. So this visit of me coming in should not be a week before shooting. So let's say I've given myself proper amount of time, and I've come in, I've looked through your inventory, and maybe you just didn't have the wound or damage that I wanted or the modification. Is that something that I could specially order that you have option for? And how long would you say that I would expect to get my product?
Yeah. So say that you want a simple gash that's very incredibly specific in a spot that we don't already have casted for. Then essentially the process would be, yes, we do offer that. We would just have to have the actor come in or someone closely resembling said actor in body shape. We take a quick cast of them, which would only take a couple hours, and 2 days to sculpt. So essentially, the whole process would take about a week to do something that's not already pre-made, and that generally, the whole process would be probably around $500-$600 just in getting the process of materials and such. So
like you did for Pete's movie, Don't Be a Stranger.
Yeah.
Pete came in, he cast his arm and his leg, and he wound up having make a nub for another guy. It was beautiful stuff, man. And
that was
a couple hours to get everything cast, and then you have to pull that and recast it.
And once the cast is set and you've got the mold created, you can make multiple versions of that, right?
And that's where a lot of these come from. We just did a project over kind of one of our sub projects that I was just involved in the prosthetics department called The Impeachment. And which is a lot of where these fat prosthetics that we have. We did a character, we had Clive Owen playing the Bill Clinton, which I just realized I don't know if I could say any of that. But a lot of the prosthetics we have is literally just Bill Clinton button noses and cheeks and chins and everything else. But it's so non-specific. And we took those sculpts and did them against generic casts, so anybody can wear them, not just Clive Owen.
Okay.
So that's how we have a lot of those. And the nicest part, it's because the one thing we don't have is a foam oven right now, which kind of forces us to do the really good stuff.
You got to do it the old-fashioned way?
The new way, actually. The old-fashioned way would be getting incredibly cheap foam latex. If we had a foam oven, we could pop out 200 prosthetics in a day. But we basically have no choice to do it the current most feasible way, which is encapsulated silicone. So it's ingenious, the technique, but it's so much faster than doing foam because the blending is so much less. But essentially, you're taking silicone and you're encapsulating something we call bombs, which is a synthetic polymer that basically is in and around the entire prosthetic. And once it's glued to the face, you use 99% alcohol and it dissolves the bomb.
Oh, it just eats it away.
And basically it blends it completely into the skin. So it is seamless, literally seamless. You don't have to do any building up around it. You don't have to do any
so you're
filler.
saying MUA doesn't have to go after and blend in any way?
No.
Wow, that's incredible.
No, short of somebody really screwing up or an actor peeling at it.
Yeah.
Which then you got to do some work.
That alcohol literally kind of melts it to your skin, and then you have to take that to get it off.
I just assumed there would have been blending of creases or skin matching.
It takes the alcohol to get it off the skin too, right?
Yeah. It it depends on your adhesive application. So I like to use this stuff that is actually made for medical adhesives. So it's designed to keep certain casts and stuff down locked to your skin, so you can't just pull it off. And it's skin safe. And there's very few people that are allergic to it. But you have to have the bee remover, and I don't suggest covering someone's entire skin in alcohol because it's a good way to dry them out really badly.
Yeah. As someone who used to perform on stage, and the recommended way to remove makeup was that oxy shit we used to do for it just dries you out day after day, doing 4 days.
Makeup wipes filled with alcohol.
Neutrogena,
yeah. It smelled. At the end of the day, the whole place
old school '90s Neutrogena, not this new.
No, man, heavily of alcohol. It was loaded with alcohol, and it dries the skin out.
So we've been having a lot of makeup artists show up. Just recently, one of the local talents here, Bree, she came in, and I'm having a hard time thinking of her last name.
I think
Oliver.
Oliver. I was going to say Olivier, but I'm adding an extra line.
Yeah, I saw that post. She has nice things to say.
Yeah, she's out in Chicago right now doing a project, and she came into the store. The last minute, they asked her they needed like a full kind of a ghoul prosthetic. And luckily, one of the big kind of dumps is we got the molds in and a crap ton of extra prosthetics that were already pre-made from Land of the Dead.
Oh, nice.
So we have over like...
Wow, those have been sitting around a minute.
Yeah. Oh, not that bad. But that's the nicest thing about silicone is it doesn't rot.
No kidding.
Yeah,
So
that's about 10 years. That's at least 10 years at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all encapsulated silicone. So that was right when the technique was being developed. And
I
they
remember
are
when you
beautiful.
bought your first load of those. Yeah.
Yeah, well, those were mostly foam latex. I only had like maybe 2 of them that were there, but now I think we have like almost 300 pieces from Land of the Dead.
Dude. That's great.
I just got contacted actually from from my buddy who is my kind of a side on that. And he's trying to convince me now to buy the severed head of the girl from Land of the Dead or not Land of the Dead. I'm sorry, Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead.
Yeah, Army of the Dead. And he's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, dude, you do understand if I buy this, I'm just going to put it in other movies.
Yeah,
like this,
right.
This is not going to be what am I going to do with a bunch of pre-made prosthetic stuff? I mean...
Yeah, I'm going to reuse it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time talking about special effects and prosthetics. I want to get a little bit into more of what you've been involved with as far as film recently. You are working director of photography, so you do that quite often. You are also a producer in Michigan and have produced several of your own shorts and things that have a pretty strong viewership on YouTube. So I'd like to ask you some questions, if it's okay with you, about putting these projects together and what it takes to take an idea and lift it off into something that people can eventually watch.
Sure, shoot.
So let's start with going back a little bit to the beginning with the Revenge of the Masked series. Can you talk a little bit about, because I know you're a fan of the series, what kind of spawned the idea to do like a fan-based media as opposed to original content?
Well, that question would be more aimed at 12-year-old Dylan.
Fair.
Essentially, the first real big project I ever got to be a part of was because of my mentor, Ray Hikus, and we got to go out to Australia to do Son of the Mask. And it was something that stuck with me my whole life. Because when we were making that film, and I shouldn't say me more, Ray was making that film, no one knew it was going to be a flop or whatever it was going to be.
Well, no one goes in hoping that their project tanks.
And I'll tell you,
you always put your
especially
effort
after
in.
the success of the actual Mask.
Yeah.
They were expecting some semblance of
what
that.
they filmed is not what is up there. There was so much more adultness behind it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, especially when we actually got to do the premiere, everyone was very, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah.
It did not get a warm welcome.
No.
At its release.
So essentially, me and my, after that, I was like, man, there's got to do this better. I'm like, there's all these awesome comics. I was a huge fan of the comics. I loved the original film. And I always thought, but the comics are so different from the movie, both in style and everything else. And I love the Norse mythology aspect that they added for the movies as opposed to the African tribe aspect. And the magic behind it, but still kind of keeping it dark enough to where it makes sense. And so being at this time, I think about that point, I was like 17, maybe 16 or 17 years old. Me and my friend Kyle Parker had written like 9-10 different scripts on just ideas of combining these two worlds together and going out filming with handy cams that I bought, of just trying to make something fun, just home movies and stuff.
Like Cake.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, this is long before Cake.
So good.
it went through so many incarnations throughout the years, and I always joked I was going to make a real movie doing it, especially when I started breaking away from FX and becoming a shooter, and I do mean shooter, like the video world and stuff, thinking you know what you're doing. And then, you know, I got my full doses of humility when I did try to make my own commercials without my friends and stuff, and realized I don't know as much as I thought I did. You know, I one of my biggest failures was doing a spot for the Pistons about almost 14 years ago. And I bought a brand new red. I had spent all the money I had. I was ready. I was like, oh, this is my big shot. I didn't mount the red properly to the jib crane because no one showed me how to do it.
Ooh.
And yeah.
Not only did you jump right into using a red, but you decided to also put it on a jib crane.
Yeah. Yep. So after that little instant of losing that,
why you hire a rigger.
I was like, you know, I'm not ready. I went backwards, and I was like, okay, I'm jumping huge steps. Like, just because I know the video world doesn't mean I know what I'm doing. So I became a PA and decided to kind of put a halt on doing anything with that project. And then it wasn't until about 2017 that a friend of mine, a very, very good friend of mine, Karen Klosky, who created the prop for the original film, had passed away. And basically Kyle said, we got to do it. If we're going to do it, we'll do it now. You know what you're doing now, right? And I said, no, I don't.
It's been 5 years. You know a little bit more.
I know a little bit more, but
because you PA'd and you paid attention, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I had done some projects, and I'd done a lot of commercials, and I've DP'd a few projects, but it doesn't mean I knew how to throw together everything from scratch. So I just sat and I listened, and I gathered the money together, kind of did an estimate of what I thought everything was going to cost. And I realized something very important. As I watched all these other fan films on the internet, in general, I noticed there was a shit ton of dialogue, but not a lot of things happening. There was cool things that would happen every now and again. But I thought the real problem is that people are trying to make these hour and a half long features on budgets that just don't make any sense. And then I thought, okay, well, say I'm going to spend about $50,000 on a movie. The problem is that I'm only going to have enough budget to do about maybe 15 minutes worth of really cool stuff. Yeah. So am I going to spread out 15 minutes over the course of an hour and a half?
With a bunch of shitty dialogue?
Yeah.
Right, just to buffer it and fill it.
Like, if it's quippy and good dialogue, sure. But as you're saying, it's just filler.
So, and I think another problem that independent filmmakers make when it comes to dialogue, because dialogue can fill time. You know, pages definitely lengthen, but it still takes time. You got two choices: to either block it and fully flesh out the life that your characters are living and move it, which requires you to move the camera and relight a lot more, or you stand them in the same place, shoot over, and really after a few minutes, it's a slag. And for something like Mask, which is inherently something that's fast.
Yeah, he gets that mask within the first 20 minutes of the film, and then that's spread out over the course of the rest of the movie. Yeah. And so that's what made me realize, okay, this isn't going to work if I don't get that mask on his face within the first 20 minutes. Yeah, people are going to get bored, and they're going to just fuck off. So we're like, all right, how about this? We don't make a feature. I cut it off at exactly the 45-minute point. And we do literally 15 minutes of character development and situationness and 15 minutes of him wearing the mask. And then the rest of that time is maybe generated towards telling another story or a prologue or, you know. And so then me and Kyle were like, no, the scripts we have are going to work in this format. So we scrapped all of them. And we're like, okay, what is the most generic scenario that we could think of that we could put the mask in? And then I just jokingly said, well, gangsters. And Kyle's like, no, that can work. And he's like, what if some guy who's in a scenario where he actually owes people money and they unnecessarily hurt him, causing him to get revenge? And then I'm like, yeah, we could call it Revenge of the Mask. And then he's like, that works too. And
because you accidentally falling into shit.
Yeah, and then literally, I think that day we wrote the entire script. And And then Christina's like, well, okay, guys, slow down. Let's put this within the realm of reality. What can we afford? What can this? And this is the part as a producer that's always bothered me, is that, I'm like, here's the thing. I don't want to think of restrictions. I want to think of what I can do with my own talents, what you can do. And then I'm not going to be the dick, go, we'll worry about the costs later. Let's just try it, see what those costs are going to be, and then do it. So I told Christina, don't think in those terms. Get inspiration from the comics and tell me how much it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. Just be realistic. And she did. And she did some awesome designs, a lot of them from scratch with the masks, costumes, and everything else, and trying to draw as much inspiration. But once we actually got down to production, that's when things got really bad because I started getting sick. And I was going to be DP, director, producer, all this other crazy shit. And I realized that it just
shame
was not going to happen. So I had worked with a friend of mine, Lance Kwas, about, I want to say 5 years prior.
Okay.
And he was one of the only people
paid in full.
Yes, paid in full.
That's where I met.
That's where I met Joe.
You and Lance, everybody. Yeah.
And he took some shits. I mean, like, it was a very difficult production, and he rolled with the punches. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need someone who can do that and, not compromise the vision. So brought in Lance, and then Lance was like, you're not good. I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, dude, you can barely stand. How are you going to hold my camera? And I'm like, well, who do you know that can do the vision that I want to do with the look? And so then we brought on Istvan, because Istvan was also on Paid in Full.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we're like, all right, we'll just get the team back together. And then we're like, we're going to need a really good stunt coordinator. And so I held auditions for stunt people. And one day in walks Peter Harold. And, just this seemingly almost, what's the word? Surfer dude kind of look at the time.
Sure, yeah.
And
very unassuming, yeah.
Yes. And then he's like, dude, you got to work with my boy Bobby. You got to work with him. Bring him in. Like, he's crazy. He'll do anything.
Bobby will do anything.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And so we did. And then that first day, we're like, okay, here's the 5 stunts, the crazy ones. Got to hang a man off a bridge. Dude has to fall off a ladder. Gunshot effects of getting riddled with bullets. He's like, got it. Are you going to explain to me how you're going to do it? Nope. I'm like, I'll just give you the price tag. I'm like, I love you already.
Wow.
And then once the team was together and we realized, okay, you're going to handle this, you're going to handle this, you're going to handle this. Dylan just needs to do this. Perfect. Let's go. And then me and Tracy handled the special effects and sculpting that helped save a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Got the prosthetics. And this is what I tell everyone. There's like, why does Revenge look so amazing or whatever? It's because that sucker took 7 months of prep.
Yeah.
7 months. And, these people are trying to put together movies in less than a month.
Yeah. Yeah. From idea to first day on,
and we're talking
first day rolling.
A relatively the same.
You're going to miss a step.
And it's the same amount of money.
3.
We rented that RELX Mini. Nobody owned that.
Oh, okay.
At the time. That was before Istvan owned his own cameras.
Right, yeah.
So it's like
standard practice.
We did everything by the book. And yeah, we still had a lot of mistakes. We had problems with like food and everything else, but it was all stuff that we kind of tripped over and learned. Of course, there was a lot of pickups and little things we had to get. Honestly, the biggest misstep, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but the guy that I hired to do the CG way overestimated his abilities. And basically, the trailer dropped, and as we know, it blew up. And it was getting to the point where it's like, dude, I need to start seeing results. We're premiering in 2 months.
Yeah, you want to take this energy and roll with it.
Yeah, and then he's like, Dylan, it's bad. I don't have anything finished. I'm not going to be able to finish it, and I can't pay you back your money.
Wow.
Ouch.
And I'm like, what? Yeah, dude, I bit off way more than I could chew, and I'm broke. I could owe you it, pay it off gradually, but it's not something I can do for you, and I am so sorry. And it's my fault for paying him everything up front, but he was a friend.
Sure.
And it taught me a lot. So I had to reach out and find someone that could take it over. And that poor bastard had less than 2 months to do 6 months of work.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's to this day, that's the one reason why a lot of those CG effects didn't turn out quite the way I wanted them to. He did his best. But honestly, for what he did in 2 months were incredible. Let's be honest. But although if that hadn't happened, the next part of it probably wouldn't happen either. The original Rise of the Mask was never meant to be its own entity. That was originally supposed to be the first 6 minutes of Revenge of the Mask.
Okay.
It was a prologue, and the whole thing was just inspired off of a deleted scene from The Mask, which is a bunch of Vikings dropping off the mask to a beach.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was just a homage to that, kind of like, our explanation of where the mask came from.
Sure.
But basically, I realized we're not going to be able to release in October like we wanted. And if I didn't release something by October 31st, I was going to lose all credibility.
Yeah.
So sitting down, extremely depressed, we all had a meeting, all of us together. And I think it was Bobby said, do we have any extra content we could put out there? Something? And I said, could just slice off the beginning of the movie and pretend it was like its own short.
So you guys had already shot that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was part of the shoot?
Yeah.
Yeah, just that beach scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a little fight between...
And that's
Bobby
the shorter
and Peter.
version, not the whole Rise of Odin's Night.
Right.
No, that's just the short, the original short. So I said, look, whatever is going to go up on October 31st, I assure you is going to explode. But if it isn't what they want it to be, it's going to explode and then putter out to non-existence. Yeah. And then we're going to lose all the algorithm that we've built up. And so we made up a fake poster. And I do mean fake. Like I threw together a poster like the night before and was like, surprise, guys. Instead of getting the movie you wanted, you're going to get another movie. And it's the big surprise. It's 2 different movies in the same year. One you never even knew about. And the audience was skeptical, of course, but then we put it up there. And at first it did nothing. And then I get a call from Lance while I'm out in Orlando doing at the time, our second annual vacation out there. And he's like, well, we did it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I got 2 million views overnight.
Wow.
And it's just not stopping. And I'm like,
nice.
Well, let's see what the comments say. And they were nothing but positive at first.
You're always going to get negative.
Yeah. And then to this day, it's just become the Energizer Bunny that just won't die. I think the thing's sitting at close to 60 million views or something like that.
Yeah,
that's nice, dude.
But if that hadn't happened, we would have never got greenlit to make Rise of Odin's 9, which became its own like little alternating franchise.
Right, but it also bought you the time to finish Revenge and release that.
Yeah,
keep that momentum up.
So if I'm hearing, and if you allow me to break down your story a little bit, one of the things that going back to your conversation with Christina, once Kyle lit that fire up under your ass, and you guys were like, well, and you said that you didn't really care so much about what it cost, but what's it going to take. And what I'm hearing in that, and something that I would like to share with the listeners, is to write to your resources. You knew what you were capable of doing skill-wise, so that was taken off. So even if you were biting off more than you would have preferred to chew, it was still what you put into the project was your own. So things like the mask creation, Christina doing wardrobe and costume design. These are things that you were able to elevate at essentially no cost. And then from there, you built your story around that in order to, as you said, avoid what other producers have done and overshoot or undershoot the mark.
Well, I wouldn't say I built this story, and that's why I told her I don't want to. Basically, our restrictions to take away from what we've written. And I said, I want you to tell me what you could feasibly do within, your limitations as an artist. And then, tell me what the cost is later. And then we'll see what we could do if there's cheaper alternative ways to do it. And that's something that I've learned over time is that, and this is something that prepared me to be a producer, over time. and it's something I didn't even realize I was doing, is that when I did that 10-year period, I literally tried every last aspect of production. I even got myself in as a sound engineer for a couple of projects, and which, by the way, I am the worst sound engineer on the planet.
Me too. Shaky
I'm
hands.
not very good. Yeah.
Shaky hands.
I just don't enjoy holding my hands above my head for an hour at a time.
Yeah, kudos to all our sound.
You guys are awesome.
Much
but
love.
you know what that prepared me for is that I knew every mistake I made, and by doing what I did, I know when someone's coming up to me and saying something is feasible or not feasible, I know they're full of horse shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized that, okay, I think to be a good producer, not an EP, a producer, the man who's responsible for hiring all these people to do all these different jobs, you have to have a fundamental understanding of each individual part of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't have to be a perfectionist at it. You don't have to be the epic sound guy. You just have to know what it requires to do the job.
You have to have at least a clue.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit on maybe some of the responsibilities of a producer for some of the people who may not know at all what a producer does?
Well, like I said, first and foremost, when you're starting the production off, you're basically the person that has to track down the people who also have to do those individual jobs. And it's important to have those resources and have kind of your gauntlet of the people that you want to work with the most, or the people that you have on reserve.
You know who's dependable, who not only brings their A game, but is going to show up every day.
Well, and it's also eliminating an unknown. Anytime you can control more of the unknowns, the better position you feel.
Exactly. Which is, to elaborate on what Bradford just said, is that the second is you are the first foremost, the front guard of any little problem that can afflict the production. Your job is to basically try to be precognate of anything that could hit you. Whether it's like food or, something that sounds stupid, but I've watched.
Oh man, some of the simple shit. Do we have tables? Are there tents? The things where I'll have crew members come up and be like, do we have this, this, and this? And it's like, I'd love to say we do, but like as a first AD, that's not my responsibility. And I've got to go to the production and be like, how come it's raining and we don't have tents? Like, where did you expect our talent to change? Where did you expect them to? So these are all things that like, they do seem simple and they do seem
pointless.
Petty, yeah, but when you're in that position, you can't.
We're filming in the woods for 8 hours. Where are they going to relieve themselves?
Bug spray, tanning lotion, water on a hot day. There are a lot of these things that can be slept on. And
permits,
Oh
insurance.
my God. Permission to be somewhere so that you're not losing 4 hours to police coming and antagonizing you.
Dealing with any form of bureaucracy or police or anything, any of those natures. Basically, you are the white blood cells to the infections that could befall a production.
Don't you dare get in the way of no bus driver.
No.
Look out.
But it's also, the unfortunate part of being a producer is that your job, first and foremost, beyond that, is to kind of ensure the overall vision of the project. And in hierarchy, basically, yes, everyone thinks the director holds all the power, but it's actually the producers. And they can tell them no, they can fire them. And basically, it's not about trying to control the vision of the project. It's you have to almost kind of be the no man. Yeah. And nobody likes the no man. Nobody likes the guy stepping on, well, what are you telling me that we can't afford this, to do this? And it's like, yeah, because you screwed up.
Right.
Or we screwed up. It happens. It's a business.
Yeah. As an AD, I rely heavily on having a producer on hand because if, for example, I've got a director and a DP who we're just running a little bit slow. They're taking too much time for setups. They're taking just for whatever reason, we're running behind. And I come in and I say, okay, listen, this is where we're at, guys. We've still got this that we've got to shoot coming up. We've got to cut this short, or you need to understand that we're going to have to cut something later. If there's a disagreement between the three of us, I can then go to the producer and explain, like, listen, I understand what they're trying to do, but we're falling. We're an hour and a half, 2 hours behind. If we don't make this stuff up, we're either going to lose these scenes altogether, or you're going to have to start thinking about another day for us all to come back. And since producers do not like hearing me say that, they'll be like, okay, well then I'm approving us to do that. We're done with this setup. We're moving on. or whatever the decision that producer comes to, but because they are the ultimate say. They control the budget, they control in larger situations. They're the ones that have a direct line to the studio or to the EP, and we all have somebody that we answer to, and ultimately we all answer to money.
Yep. And it's the crappiest part about doing this is that it is a creative process. But everything Bradford just said is absolutely 100% correct. Because if you, every day you do is tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Yeah.
And to even just be like, because, I have worked with filmmakers who are like, well, it's no big deal. We'll just get everyone back on Saturday. It's like, well, hold on. You're talking about something that if we already had all our crap here, it would be 45 minutes to an hour. But calling people in, now you've got, first off, they got to arrive, so whatever their drive time is. They've got to unload. So now we're talking camera up, that's an hour, hour and a half plus makeup and anything else. We could be talking 2 hours to then shoot that 45 minutes to then have another hour, hour and a half of repping. That's now 5 hours that you're paying people that are already here to do one scene or two or whatever. But when it could have been done in the time that was allotted just based on decisions that were made.
Yep. Yeah. And it's, and that's why, like, dude, when we moved on to doing
45-minute scenes turns a half a day real fast.
We moved on to doing the other revenge films and all the other craziness we did for the channel. It was only just kind of reinforcing those notions of, like, as much as we could prepare for humanly possible. Like you said, when we did Rise 2, the one thing we knew off the bat that was going to be a problem was that almost everything we were shooting was outside in the woods.
Yeah.
And we did months of prep of finding a place that was safe, finding where we could stash everybody at that's not too far from set, all these little things. And yes, it was still never perfect, because I don't care what anybody says, whether they're on one of our sets or on a $50 million set, is that they could pretend like there's some league above everybody else, but the reality is more money just equals more money to lose.
Yeah, 100%.
It's
and
the same
mistakes
people.
still happen, and
pre-production is there for a reason. I've said it before, I say it again. You plan for contingencies, because no matter how much you plan for, when you get into actual production, things will pop up that are unexpected, and you have to just adapt.
And I would say a good, I mean, many roles, but a good producer would be someone who can pivot on that. Like, it's, we all feel good about our pre-production. We all feel good about going in, but then something happens. Let's use a relatively recent example that some of us have experienced over the last couple of years. You could be completely set and ready to go, but then COVID hits.
Yeah.
Right. And you did everything you could to prevent that, but it makes it on set. And unfortunately, you can't just trug on. Like, you've got to take the precautions. So now you lose 2 days, 3 days. Sometimes you might have to move the shoot. I've had both happen. But it was beyond control. And yes, sometimes there's something you can audible. So in some cases, we were able to fix the problem, work around it, and keep moving. There were other times where, unfortunately, it got to a point where we weren't able to do it. But this is an example of something that can come on that you just can't plan for. So even though you were completely tuned into that production and ready for it to go, there may always be something that will cause you to pivot and adapt.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Hello, can I help you?
We'll take a break and
it is
come
actually
right
good.
back.
I'm doing all right.
Welcome back, everybody. I am Bradford here with Joseph and Dylan Sides. I don't think
Set Life.
I don't think Joseph and I actually introduced ourselves, so now here we are about halfway through the episode or whatever.
They know who's here.
If it's your first time, I'm Bradford.
Welcome.
The other
I'm
one's
Joseph.
I'm just here.
And Dylan has been enlightening us on his story to filmmaking and kind of talking about some of his earlier projects that were under his name. You've worked on quite a few projects, but right before our break, we were discussing the role of producer, and I kind of like to go a little bit more into that before we wrap out of here today. So we were talking about you producing your own projects. How did that? Was it a willingness, or did you seek out eventually producing other projects? Was it something that called to you, or did you kind of just was it a happenstance of need?
I think it kind of just began as just a happenstance of need. honestly, it was not like, oh, I got to be in control of this or it's going to fall apart. It was a story that I was really knew that it was so ingrained in my brain and what needed to happen for it to functionally happen. And I sort of just fell into becoming like a showrunner, essentially, because then, Christina really wanted to try her hand at writing and kind of heading up Rise of the Mask because her love of Norse mythology.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then Lance
She did a great job.
really kind of headed up a lot of Revenge 2. And then my job was to kind of keep the coherency of the world that we were building together.
Yeah, keep everything cohesive, stop anybody from trying to tear each other apart because they have different ideas.
Yep. And everybody has their personalities, everybody has their ideas of how something's supposed to go. But then when you're building up 3 years worth of lore and, story, there kind of needs to be a third man to sit there. Hey guys, no, that doesn't make sense with what we've already done. And that's one of the other aspects of being a producer. It's not all about business. It's also to ensure the overall artistic vision of everything stays cohesive.
Right. I would say a good example of that would be to pick out any Jerry Bruckheimer produced movie. He's not a director, but if you watch Jerry Bruckheimer's name on any film, there's a style to it that he has a large hand in influencing.
Just look at Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
I mean, all the Marvel movies that have this kind of cohesive thing. I mean, honestly, you could really cite Marvel in creating the most expensive soap opera in history. Essentially.
Really. I mean, don't take anything away from George Lucas and Jon Favreau.
Of
course. Star Wars.
Well, technically,
when Jon Favreau stepped in there, Jon Favreau as a showrunner, as a producer, really has his own kind of style and thing too. Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Favreau.
Well, and you can see his consistencies, I guess, over in the Star Wars world. But to Dylan's point, like Favreau was one of the first in the MCU to get things without Iron Man.
Yeah,
we wouldn't have
precisely.
It was they thought that was going to be a stinker, and Favreau was like, no, let's do it my way.
Yep, and here we are today. He brought a whole franchise to life, and whoever he put in charge when he left and moved on to his thing was what's that guy's name? I'm sorry, I was totally spaced out.
Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige.
Yeah, Feige.
Well, and that's what made it interesting.
An amazing job. Yeah.
And like with Star Wars, you get one consistent kind of universe and one franchise kind of following a certain amount of people, and obviously now. It's kind of following the Marvel formula with all these other branched out universes. But what's made Marvel kind of interesting over time is that you have all these different franchises, Thor and all of them, and have to not only tell their own individual stories, but to also keep in a cohesive universe that they can all kind of thrive in without stomping out over each other. As a showrunner, I can imagine he has a lot of gray hair underneath
that's a lot of stress.
or hair at all. Just doing what we did has aged me terribly.
Right.
But no, to kind of get back to the question that I sort of trailed off from, I basically it kind of led to me having to do those productions that I've kind of gained. Not a sixth sense, but an idea of what you kind of have to do to make something successful, and consistent. And doing all these other projects, especially ones either fail or they, succeed. I was like, if someone reached out and asked me to produce their film, I wouldn't say no. I'd give it a try. It's a comfortable thing that I feel like I can actually do now. And then. Kind of started branching out, producing with my friends. I mean, hell, Joe produced with me the Batman Otherworlds thing, which was extremely experimental.
Yes, it was.
And very exciting.
And that one was problem solving. You could write a book on the problem solving that we had to do on that damn movie.
I mean, 7 days?
Yeah.
Really? Like, not from
I don't
full
even think that.
conception.
Well,
but-
so our shooting days, I think there were 3, but you guys did stuff at the office. You built the wall for the
Yeah.
opening. So there was a collective number of days that
Yeah.
were off.
No, I'm
book.
talking about from like the real like conception of like us actually do this, and not,
I want to say it was still about a month ahead because basically we knew we wanted to do a spoof or something like because we wanted to kind of step away from being known as the guys who did nothing but.
well, a bulk of the work was done. We knew the crew we were using.
Yeah.
We were using the Revenge crew, no doubt about it. And that had grown into such a
And then
another monster since then.
And then once we knew that we wanted it to be, the Batman, basically from there, it was just Christina wrote the story. And I said, hey, whatever you do, don't take it too seriously because at the 6-minute mark, it's just going to be a complete fourth wall break and we're just going to call cut.
And we just kind of went nuts with it and just allowing everybody to improv and do their thing. It just turned into something great. I think it's really enjoyable. It's about 11 minutes, right?
Yeah. And I want to say the part where I'm most proud of all of us is we had an extreme problem that we realized because we did one of the days before all the others, and it was literally it was the Batmobile stuff, and
in Indiana. Yeah.
it was so incredibly cold.
So cold.
And
we still had to fake snow.
It
yes.
was overnight. It had to be nighttime. It was midnight.
Yeah, but that was when we realized. I said, "There's no way in hell that we're going to be able to do 2 days of this with all the wire work, the stunts." And we had the condors. Everything was ready to be able to do it outside. Even had a location in Detroit that I had settled. And I just remember turning to Joe. I'm like, "There's no fucking way. I can't feel my face. I can't feel anything."
That was down in Indiana. You know how much colder it's going to be in Michigan.
And so I was like,
That house I got us to stay in that we wound up filming some stuff for Wayne Manor. That was a cool fucking
"Yeah,
house.
it was.
That was a dope
it was a good
mansion.
find.
Yeah."
Dope cool.
That was all Joe. He found that place.
Furniture. Old furniture tycoon's house from the 1930s.
Well, and we
Awesome.
threw that part because
Victorian.
we were packing and wrapping to leave because we were only scheduled to be there the one day.
Yeah.
And Joe reached out to the owner of the place and was like, we really like this for Wayne Manor. Yeah. And he would already he knew what we were coming there to shoot, so he was already excited. There was welcome. He had all kinds of printed
he
out
had
Batman
little,
comic stuff.
Yeah.
He
it was
themed
just,
the whole
just
place
on
for
regular printer paper, but it
Yeah.
was cool, man.
But,
welcome to Gotham and stuff like that.
He had to clean the place up, and he'd had another group coming in, but it was a band, and they weren't there to stay. They were there to shoot something. And they weren't going to be there at normal check-in time. So that bought us another 3 or 4 hours
they
for
weren't
us
going to be
to
until 5
throw
or
up
6.
some lights, throw up the dolly, and shoot.
When I called him, he said, honestly, I normally show up at noon because you guys are supposed to be up about 11, but they told me they're going to be there till 5, so I was going to come till 3.
Yeah.
So if you guys are out by 4, because I'm I'm going to come at 2. So we had till 3. So we shot some stuff. We got some pretty cool shots. And some of the shots, once we got Hush and we were able to film inside there, you were able to match that up.
With the stuff that we shot over there.
Yeah, because we used their hotel lobby as his living room at the bottom of the stairs kind of thing. It matched up really well.
And that's where we got into
the
the
lighting.
second gear, is that we abandoned all notions of shooting outside once we found Hush. And for people I was friends with previously, and I knew about their queue line and I knew things were doing, I said, hey, can me and Christina get in there, a few days ahead of time, do some redressing, lay down some fake snow. And they're like, as long as you clean it up, dude, we don't care. Here's what it's going to cost. And we're like,
so many dry potatoes.
and
bro.
ironically,
dry potato.
it was the cost of shooting there was exactly the same amount as it would have been to get the permits and to get the Condor to be able to do the wirework stuff. And they had these steel beams exactly where we wanted to do the drop
it
down
worked
stunts.
out really good.
And we didn't have to suffer the cold, and we had complete
And
control
we were able
of our
to work at a
environment.
comfortable pace because trying to rig a stunt person in the cold is going to make them irritable. It's going to make the crew irritable, and it just slows everything down.
So that's what I mean. That one right
Cold
there.
just thinking about it.
Just the persistence of cold's not going to work. It's either we push this shoot in the summer and figure it out, or we pause whatever we had to do.
Yeah.
And we found
We made it work.
we found it. And that's that stuff alone is what led me into basically okay, if we can do stuff like this, and what we did with Jumanji was incredible, and we did that before that. It's basically, how do you make Michigan look like 1860s Africa? Answer is you can't. You just got to build it.
Yeah.
After that kind of stuff, it was like taking inoculations. Like, all right, if I can handle that crap, I think I can handle someone else's, rom-com. So that kind of
right.
yeah.
So when you're approached to be a producer, and I mean, like most roles, you probably read the script first. But what are some of the things that you look for that are, let's say, red flags, or things that as a producer you kind of keep your eye out for challenges? Or conversely, if you don't have an answer for that, what are some of the many challenges that a producer might face going into production?
Well, I guess the best way to answer that is to give you an example of a movie that had a billion red flags that I should have acknowledged more back when I was kind of giving my starts of trying producing. So this was the latter, or right before or right after 2020. There was a project called The Good Thief.
Good Thief.
That was so we shot that post. It was shot in fall of 2020. So it was post.
It was post lockdown, but it was during.
Still a lot of restrictions.
A lot of restrictions.
So me and Bobby had gotten the call for that in 2019, and we were supposed to shoot it well before that. And Lance, once again, it was all the core team. Istvan to shoot. It was pretty much just another Revenge of the Mask film. They wanted me to also, once again, be a producer, get all that settled. When I read the script, the first thing I did was I called Tom Sizemore and his brother, and I said, guys, there's a lot, and this budget is really not here. I don't know how you're going to expect us to do this. There's a lot of car chases. There's a lot of things that are required, things that we own because there was too many stunts regarding, police cars, things like that. And he said, well, Lance talked you up, man. And he said, you can handle this. I'm like, I'm going to kill that bastard. So I basically forced him and Bobby in a room, and I said, we are going to use all of our collective knowledge, everything we've learned.
This out.
And
everybody's clout's got to come
We are not going to do that. I'm not going to do this by myself. And I got to hand it to Bobby. He took on so much of the responsibility of figuring out all the rigging situations, buying the cars, all the costs of all that. He decked out those cars with 2BO by themselves. And all the while I was pretty much handling all the bureaucracy behind the scenes. I had to convince a city to not only allow us to do some crazy ass stunts throughout the entirety of River Rouge, but make them comfortable about it and lend us pretty much their entire police force, not to be in the movie, but to basically just protect us.
Shut down the roads for the chases and
stuff. And
that was so much fun, dude.
We basically, we took over that city for what, 2 weeks?
At least, yeah.
Yeah. I had golf carts. I didn't drive around by normal means because there was so much driving around and going through towns.
Everything was so close, but not close enough.
Yes.
It was basically half the month of October.
So me and Bobby tracked down these two, one cart specifically for car chases that we could rig a black arm to.
Yeah.
And then one just for getting talent and stuff to and from sets. Because I think it was the police parking lot.
Police parking lot was base camp.
Base camp.
Right in between by the school there. But, I mean, we'd be shooting like less than a quarter mile up the way in the diner or on the streets themselves. And
or
trying to park.
In the industrial section by the beach.
And you've got to like, okay, chases. So if everyone goes down there, you have to hide the grip truck, which is huge, and you can see it. Like everyone knows when they see a grip truck on frame.
Yes.
But then you've got all the extra crews and things like that. So in order to reduce that, we stayed at a base camp, and we had the tent set up, we had the heater set up there, and that's where most of cast and crew parked. But then, like, you couldn't walk. There was no carrying a dolly.
We were always
or
at least a block away.
Yeah. And that project,
hidden in an alley of mud and
that project was one of the most difficult to throw together, and the most difficult, honestly, in post to kind of deal with, because that was one of the first times that I was a producer of a project that had a overarching executive that I didn't have a relationship with or had no control over. So I, for the first time, had a real person to answer to in that regard, which honestly was perfect because it prepared me for the next thing I had to do, which was insane. This project called Crisis, or whatever it was called back then. But we had to, that was basically, they shot primarily most of the project in Ontario, and they needed a crap ton of stuff filmed in Michigan, and that required a whole new ball of wax.
Was that 35 millimeter film one you did?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had to dig up some people in Michigan I've never worked with before, the Kragans. They were the only ones in Michigan that could still handle shooting on 35 millimeter film.
Yeah.
We shut down entire sections of Woodward. It was insane. And after I did that, I was like, you know what? Okay, at this point, might as well just call myself a producer.
Yeah.
If we could do that. So then I just took on, I want to say, like, in between shooting our own stuff, because I was still also primarily, going out as a DP and taking on odd jobs, doing other things. Basically, we were, I think at that time of that, between that and 2021, I think I produced like 9 different projects. First of which was like for Peter Harold, who ended up doing his Don't Be a Stranger, and the first incarnation of it back when it was just a short.
Yeah.
And did a bunch of Tubi movies and indie projects, and then it's just been kind of that spinning wheel ever since. But when I read a thing, there's always red flags, always. But that's part of the job, is to mitigate them.
Sure.
And it's like with Good Thief, I want to say what made me realize is the only problem is that when you're working with all your friends and we become such a family, it becomes harder and harder to tell that family, you guys need to chill the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And no, you can't do this. No, there's a reason why you can't.
Now that ain't your job.
Yeah, you can't whip a car around a corner that doesn't have any cabling,
Right.
Hell, I think there was one point we took out a lamppost.
Possibly.
A little bit.
That was an admission.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an open secret now, but at the time it was a thing. But it
Once or twice.
Yeah, and but it's like, I don't know, when you kind of lull yourself in these false insecurities of like every time you keep surviving this great thing, you're like, oh, I just can't die. That's the problem.
You just keep getting away with it.
Yeah.
If someone were thinking to themselves that they wanted to be a producer, what would you say would be some of the things that would be important for a person, like what type of skills or personality traits that a person would need in order to be a successful producer?
I would say 4 simple things. Number 1, like I said earlier, take yourself and train yourself in every facet of film production.
Familiarize yourself with every role.
Every role. You don't have to be perfect at it. Just know it. Know it's involved. Know what you need to have in order to accomplish those things. That way, if someone comes up to you and says, hey, I know how to do this, this, and this, you ask them 2 simple questions, and then you'll know if they're full of shit or not.
Right.
Number 2, have an outgoing personality, but also know when you have to be firm and you have to deal with personalities. I've had many scenarios on set where I've had people be very unkind to others, and I'm like, guys, squash this now, or one of you is going to go.
Yep.
You gotta.
Yeah, show us to keep moving.
Yeah, you gotta have a thick skin. You gotta be the boss.
Yeah. You gotta take some people screaming in your face, calling you names or whatever.
That pleasant people person, but you also gotta be,
I've had some people unfortunately leave right in the middle of sets. It happens.
Yeah,
I can speak.
Arguments happen.
So as we've worked together as producer and first, and there have been times or moments or days on set where we've had escalations, but because we're both professionals and because in that moment we're producer AD, not buddies, we were able to squash it. But it's gonna happen. It's how you handle it.
Yes.
It's how I handled the situation, how you handled the situation allowed us to continue to work and be successful in whatever it was that we were trying to figure out.
Yeah, and Dylan and I have had our own things. Sometimes we dealt with them the wrong way, or I dealt with it the wrong way, but we've always worked it out, gone forward and finished the project, and ultimately strengthened the friendship.
Yeah, and that's
now we better understand how to communicate with each other.
Because everyone has their own feelings and shit gets hurt, but at the end of the day, it's like you kind of lose sight and forget that everyone's there because it's doing something they love. And I think people just get passionate, and then we get too in our head about things, and then things get left unsaid. And then it just becomes, this great divide. And then eventually all people have to do is just sit and talk for 2 minutes. And that's why, like, if I see that happening on set, and it's like you don't really use it, like, kind of understand it when you're in that chair, but it takes a producer to go, like, guys, why is this even happening? What's the argument actually about?
Yeah. Yep.
Why are you actually mad? I don't know. Well, there you go. You guys are friends again. Fuck off and do your jobs.
So I think you gave us 3 of the 4. What was the fourth one?
The fourth one is probably the biggest one, which is at the end of the day, you have to keep a balance of doing the work, being the boss, and mitigating those disasters. But at the same time, if you're going through all of that and you stop kind of thinking about the fact that you're also still an artist, and you have to think about this in ways that's like, okay, you have to have that vision in your mind. If you're going into this purely for the money or purely for this is my day-to-day, your films are going to turn out looking like crap.
Yeah.
Because yes,
Where's the heart?
yeah, you're not the director, but it's your job to make sure the director is doing their job and staying on task. And if something's going through that monitor that doesn't look right, then you know that you're,
So you have to do something about it now before it's too late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because going back to post and you see those things and then you're turning that crap into the EP, it's your ass who's on the fire and nobody else's. I've had I've had projects that were a couple million all the way to 300,000, and it's terrifying. And that's where you really got to have that thick skin of like, to these people on set, this is their paycheck. And this is, their livelihood and whatnot. But then to me, it's like, this is not my money. And I'm the one spending it. And if anything goes wrong, one of you guys don't do their job, you're just taking a paycheck. I'm the one getting sued for $300,000.
Yeah.
So,
right. And your job, so while everyone else, for the most part, has their time, there's crew members that are pre-production only. There are members that are pre-production, then production, then they're out. There are others that only start at post-production, but the producers from the beginning to the end. And, you're there all the way through.
All the way through.
Until all of eternity almost, because, there could always be more things that you get involved in.
I have projects that we shot in the summer of 22 that are just now going through festivals. And we have one that's finally going through its last 2, Sunlight. And that's going on 2 years now.
July 22, I'm pretty sure.
And I still have meetings, and we have our Skype meetings and all that crap once a month. I've been doing this for 2 years, And then you stack that. It's not just that. It's like, so once you're in that hole of, okay, well, I have that. Well, now I have about 9 or 10 projects that were shot.
In different steps. They could be going through post, they could be finished through post, they could be shooting, there's so many different stages that you're bouncing your mind between.
One more thing I add is that you have to multitask like you breathe.
Yeah.
And keep track of all those different things, because every one of those projects are different. Everyone has different steps, different entry points, like you said, and exit points. And even when a movie does sell, finally, it's never truly over.
No.
Because then it's always, what do we do next?
Yeah.
How do we get international now?
Yeah.
How do we? Yep.
Well, I think that's a good point to wrap our
Contract's
conversation
only 18
up.
months. So what do we do after 18 months? What do we do for the next?
So we're going to wrap it up here. Before we let you go, Dylan, are there any projects that you have coming out or coming up that you want to talk about? Any new releases or anything you want to bolster?
Sunlight is going through its last final stages of its circuit. It's got one more not South by Southwest. I cannot remember. I think it's the Beijing Film Festival that it's going through. After it does that, we have our final supports meeting and who we're going to end up selling it to. And we got a couple options, which is really nice. And that one's exciting because it's unfortunately the final performance of Tom, and it's a brilliant script. And one of the most
It's an emotional run.
one of the most unique projects I've ever had to work on as both
Tom
a
was
producer
touching in it, yeah.
and it had someone being in it. It's my first role acting in anything, and mostly because I was bullied into it. Because Bobby's like, "I want a real friend to be in this with me, and if you don't, I won't do it." I'm like,
No,
"Oh,
and-
you suck."
And you were great, man. You were,
you
Thank you.
killed it. You killed it.
So that's a biggie. The other one is, of course, Don't Be a Stranger. That one's going to be releasing soon as well.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm excited to see that.
Oh,
Yeah,
me too, man.
We got all the producers came together about 2 months ago, and we saw the final rough cut before it's going through final post. And oh man, it is
Very cool.
really, really good. But those are the ones I can talk about. The last is Supercut, which is an amalgamation of everything that we've filmed over the last 5 years. And
Under the Mask,
For the Mask,
super
right.
cut.
yeah, we're in the last, everything's edited. All the special effects are like 70% done. One thing we were waiting on is kind of just throwing around, kind of looping back history.
We never did the big number, like the
What?
huge. Never mind.
We did the,
We don't. There's nothing bigger than we did. You fuck off right now.
yeah, I was saying we
I
talked
swear
about
to
it.
God. No, we handled the big shit.
Was it Deadpool?
Oh, yeah.
Joe's pining for his cameos.
Never mind. Moving on.
Yeah, no. We can still do it.
So that's something that we're seeing soon. Then.
Yes.
So in the meantime, where could someone watch the mask stuff that's out there, or any of your individual content?
Well, if you want to see that crazy ass stuff, that is on Revenge of the Mask Film on our YouTube channel. And we also have Revenge of the Mask 2, our second channel, which is where Revenge of the Mask 2 lives. We have plenty of stuff that we've done all over Tubi's, probably well over 100 projects or something at some point. And Crisis is out, and I think there's about 5 or 6 others that have come out. That's unfortunate too, is we've done so much crap that I'm losing track of everything that we've done.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always go to Dylan's IMDb page, but and check out, because I mean, a lot of this stuff is available to stream somewhere.
Yes.
Free or otherwise. But
And
it's
of
there.
course, there's the shop, which
Spy Ops.
Yep, Spy Ops, which is located in 29207 Southfield Road in Southfield, Michigan.
All
Excellent.
your
Do you guys have a website for that yet?
official
We do.
rental needs.
And right now it's just got the spy stuff on it. But within the next couple of days, actually, all the new sections of the page should open up.
Okay, so what's that website?
www.spyops.net.
Ooh, easy to remember. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any social platforms you want people to follow you on? You want to share those? You don't have to, but if you want,
You can
strangers.
find me on Facebook. Honestly, I'm the worst with that stuff.
All of social. People are learning that we are too.
But there is pages for Revenge of the Mask, which I think is just Revenge of the Mask. I know there's one up for the Batman thing. I don't know if the Jumanji one is still up, because that was run by Sony, because they recognized how terrible I was at running it.
And they took that over. That's nice. Nice of
I
them.
don't know if they left it up after.
Well, that was for charity.
Yeah.
For charity, so of course let them have it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we also have Controlled Chaos.
Yep, Controlled Chaos. Well, I mean, that's the channel that runs
Right.
everything that we do for that. Oh,
The Mothership.
I guess the last thing I can give as a tease is we are going to go back to doing one more thing for the channel, which I guess I could announce here. We're going to call it Back to the Future Goes Wrong.
Yay.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I can say. Everything else
I
is
remember.
secret.
I remember the teaser for that
I'm pretty.
Yeah.
with good old Mothy.
No, that was an entirely separate
Yeah,
thing.
that's separate.
Oh yeah.
But we might actually integrate it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dylan. I appreciate you coming on. Joe, where can people find you and stalk you?
You can, online stalk me at the social medias, Instagram at chaotic_artisan, or Joseph Sheldon Quick on Facebook, IMDb. I don't do the Twitter X, so leave me alone, Elon Musk.
I think we have a
Stop
Twitter.
healing. Stop emailing me.
I think we have a Twitter. I don't think anyone's operated it in like 4 years.
For Batman?
Yeah,
Or
just
for-
No, from like Controlled Chaos.
Oh,
I just
okay, yeah,
don't-
I just don't know.
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
I'm on the wrong thing. Give me a second here. So you can follow me on Instagram at Beeford Clark. You can also follow the show on Instagram at ufostudio.detroit. And then you can listen to our podcast, obviously, on all different podcast platforms, but you can visit our website at ufpodcast.podbean.com, and there you will find all of our episodes as well as a link to our merch store. So we are
Giddy up.
officially opening up a merch store where you can get some T-shirts and hats and cool mugs.
The UFO Bazaar.
And
one of
we
those damn
want
mugs.
we want feedback,
Yeah.
So our goal is obviously, we're selling things because we want to make some money, but the money is going to directly fund Joe and I's future projects, including our script Nightcap.
Keep the podcast going.
Exactly. So if you want to show support to us and have some cool swag, you can visit us there. You can go directly to the website at the-UFO-bazaar, bazaar.printify.me/products, but it's probably easier just to go to our website at ufpodcast.podbean.com and click on the link there, right? Yeah,
Okay,
a lot.
at first-
no
A
one
lot
wrote that shit
easier.
down.
Okay.
Not a single
At first,
person.
I thought Bradford was saying that from memory, and then I realized
no.
the iPad was there. And I was just like, oh my God,
How
dude.
impressive. No, I'm not that impressive. No.
He's a god. No,
But hold on, let me finish this rap out.
he's on the roll. He's on the roll.
Yeah, we're already off a little bit, but just send us comments. So we want to know what kind of merch you want. All of our merch is designed with multiple different colors. You can choose whatever color you want, but if you choose black, they are set safe. We want our gear to be something that you can wear proudly. So our highlight T-shirt and hoodie right now is our Thank the Crew. You take a look at the website, and it's our way of showing pride to what we do and showing gratitude to all of the team members out there that rarely get the recognition beyond what they say. So no film would exist without the MUAs, without our PAs, without our AD department, our camera department, the transport department, the people working paperwork behind the scenes.
We got
everybody.
30-some positions on that.
So if you are interested in that and showing your pride being a crew member, we have that and more.
We have it in hoodies and T-shirts. If you want it on a mug, we can do that. We can design every product. Me and Brad do it up, and we would love to hear what you would like to see next.
So you can email us any recommendations at ufostudio.detroit@gmail.com. Gentlemen, anything else before we sign out?
Sports.
Yay, sports.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks for joining us at #SatLife.
Yeah, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Sports.